I introduce General Mary Ann Miller. Come on out.
Wow, this is awesome. And I can see y'all. I'm not doing what the secretary was doing like this, right? I can see, I can look into your eyes, which is what this is about. So General McNabb, thank you, sir, for everything. General Fogelman, Chief, thank you for being here. General Beggert, thank you. Everyone that's Chief, of course, my Chief. And Airmen, I'm going to talk about you today. That's what this is about. This is about you. And ATA is precious. ATA is an opportunity to hear from all of our senior leaders. It's our chance to share with industry. It's our opportunity to have worthwhile discussions with our international partners. And where are they? Most of our international partners. Okay, thank you all for being here. It's amazing. Seminars rich in content, great force development forums. I only got to visit one, but I know there was a lot of good work going on in all of those. We've applauded our innovators, and we've selected the one to go forward. Unfortunately, we only could select one to go forward, but of the 10, you know, we saw 5 here, just like last year. The 10 that we had that came into AMC and we evaluated, we moved all those forward. Same thing's gonna happen here. We'll go back and evaluate. There's some price points that are big, we gotta get those down. There's some things we have to do. But those ideas, those young airmen, you are all so impressive. And those young airmen that stood up here and told their story, all I kept thinking about was, I hope industry's not out there because they're gonna snag these guys, right? We have the best airmen on the planet. And there's people that want them, and we need to keep them. I think the one thing that I love about ATA is the mentoring that happens within this community. When we get our chief here, when we get our 4-stars here, when we get our retired general officers and chiefs and airmen from all ranks, that's what makes this special. And that's what makes this incredibly important to me. This is an opportunity I cherish. It's my time to muster you, get you all in front of me so I can see you eye to eye, and tell you the difference that you make in the defense of this country. Because I don't think I tell you that enough, and I don't think I show you that enough. So that's what we'll try to do today. We're gonna share your stories of being there for the warfighter, being there for the hurricane victims, and most importantly, being there for each other. We'll talk about our capabilities to compete, deter, and win in the challenges that we will face in our future. And finally, I'll describe the value that you bring to the fight every single day. Our airmen, all of us, we've been there. We've been there across the needs of the joint force and the joint fight around the globe. The warfighters, they can't do anything without you. And hope, in the midst of devastation, cannot prevail without us. We are a formidable formation. Check it out, right? Of strength, courage, and perseverance. That's who you are. And we're making progress every day on the mobility force that we need for the future. We're making progress. Could use some more money, but we're making progress, right? Airmen across this command make a difference every day in a very challenging world. No matter your expertise or your position on the manning document, it doesn't matter to me. We're all called to do our job and do our duty and to take care of each other. If each one of you were to write down your Air Force story, it'd be impressive. Even for the airmen who just got out of basic training. Because you stand out. You stand out in America. And you stand out to us. Even though you got just this much experience, we're proud of you. And we count on you every single day. So we're going to talk about stories today. And the first one is our work in Syria. Last December, and now, and again now. We are moving and withdrawing troops from Syria. Our air mobility liaison officers are helping the Joint Force move and put airlift to work. Our contingency response forces are there to expand the forward operating bases. And in only a few short months, you've moved thousands of troops and tons of equipment out of Syria, and we're going to keep doing it for a while. Combat Airlift worked together with our AMLOs and our CR forces to move and pivot the Joint Force when we needed to. We're the ones that could do it fast. We're the ones that call. Secretary Mattis used to say, if our enemies challenge us, it'll be their worst and their longest day. Our airdrop crews know about this. From the skies above, they deliver the troops, they deliver the supplies to sustain and maintain the fight in all the hot spots around the world. So you know what, let's hear from one of our crews who did this over the dark skies of Afghanistan. You were there. You were there when our partners were hemmed in by the Taliban out of options and out of fuel.
So we had just gotten back from a mission. We got told that we got a short notice airdrop to help out our Afghan partners the next day. Our tactics team had a lot of coordination that they had to do in a very short amount of time. They had to coordinate with our Afghan partners at the airdrop location. They had to coordinate with reconnaissance aircraft to make sure that they had presence over the airdrop location, to have eyes on the drop zone during the whole operation. And then just plan up the whole airdrop from cradle to grave in a very compressed timeline. One of the biggest challenges is we had no U.S. presence at the airdrop location. Coordinating with the Afghan partners to clear the drop zone and secure the area was one of the bigger challenges. We rely on the ground party for several things in normal airdrop situations. Security of the drop zone, clearing of the drop zone, and passing the weather and conditions at the drop zone. Without their presence there, we had to come up with more creative solutions to get that same desired effect. So our tactics team developed a plan in coordination with Intel to make sure we had a great ingress routing to avoid those perceived threats. Also, we had a first pass success mentality. We wanted to get the drop off at the first moment so that we were in and out of there before the enemy realized we were there. It's critical in airdrop to have a good altimeter setting. Without that support, we kind of had to flex to other techniques. We flew over a known point. We knew what altitude we were supposed to be at there, and we verified it off of our systems based on that point. So cradle to grave, it was a complete team effort. I was there to deliver combat air power via airdrop for our Afghan National Army partners so they could keep the fight at the enemy's doorstep.
So do you remember the names Florence, Michael, and Dorian? Yeah, hurricanes that pounded everything in their path. And you were there to respond. You safeguarded our national assets by evacuating aircraft and equipment from our bases. Their CRG forces stood ready for that call to open the fields and establish order amid devastation. And our AE crews, Aerovac crews, are always poised and ready to care for fellow citizens in harm's way. And when Hurricane Michael unleashed its fury on the Florida Panhandle and wiped out Tyndall, wiped it off the map, you were there. You were there within hours to take the force of AMC and put it back on the map. You opened a base by unleashing the port dogs. Come on. You better get better than that towards the end of this thing, right? by connecting command post controllers, by leveraging the maintainers, and establishing airfield operations. And when things go to hell in a handbasket, these cross-functional teams come together, and they bring order from absolute chaos. Our command was there. Our command was there. And after Hurricane Michael, the whole world saw us there, putting Tyndall back together. You were there within 19 hours after the wind stopped to put it back together.
Nobody wants a disaster to happen by any stretch of the imagination, but as soon as it does, we're ready to go. Our job was to reopen the airbase, just kind of get the aircraft able to flow back through there, unload, offload cargo as necessary, pretty much all offload as we were getting all the aid supplies and supplies to kind of start to reopen the base and just make sure that the supply chain was moving. The thing that hits you right away is the devastation. I mean, there wasn't hardly a roof on a building. Trees broken in half all over the place, debris everywhere. And I mean cars, tires, insulation from buildings, from the roofing, all over the place. The first real obstacles we faced were trying to figure out where we were going to set up shop for our operations and our living space. Usually we set up in the grass. In this case, trying to find an area that was elevated out of anywhere that could flood again if more rains came or what have you. So we ended up setting up shop in a parking lot, which meant we had to find a creative way to anchor down the tents. You get into a groove once we get that established, and we make contact with everybody that's still there, that's trying to get operations going, so they know who we are and what we can provide. Then we get the job done properly. Once we saw that first F-22 take off, we knew we successfully reopened the base. Ideally, we want to bring the smallest footprint, so we bring exactly what we need. And a lot of positions are only one deep, so a lot of times maybe certain positions they'll need augmentation or assistance, even just briefly. So we've got people that are happy to help, especially if they don't have anything going on right then, they'll try and jump in. So like my comm team, for instance, are always a good go-to. They'll set up their equipment, and unless there's something wrong, they're ready and willing to do any other job that we could ask of them. We bring out, I would say, the best and brightest, but also the ones that really are excited to do the job, that really want to be there and want to help out.
Yeah. Teddy Roosevelt was fond of saying, "Speak softly and carry that big stick. You'll go far." One way America wields that big stick is with our bomber force. Over the vast blue of the Pacific, bombers can only make it so far before they get thirsty for some of that tanker gas. And AMC's there, dispersed throughout the Pacific, to make sure that if our bombers are needed as an option, that they can get there and back. We stand ready every hour of every day to be there for you, to be there for them, for the bomber force, so that they can do what they need to do. Not only do our tanker crews shrink the Eastern Hemisphere, but they make the B-2 Express a reality. From the middle of our country to some place we read about the next day in the news. The B-2 Express is a reality. Our Guard and Reserve crews make homeland defense a reality for us too. They defend it. And abroad, our reserve components are ready at a moment's notice to scramble alongside our fighters and bombers to deter and to defend. America cannot execute its mission across America and do what we need to do without our total force. We're truly one force, and we're one fight. So the next vignette I'm going to show you doesn't really tell the whole story, so I got to put some pieces into it for you. American soldiers had taken casualties by Taliban sniper fire. Their extraction force was delayed because of battle damage and maintenance. And to make matters even worse, the gunship providing suppression fire was running low on fuel. So you were there. You were there to keep guns in the air and prove once again, nothing kicks, you know what, without tanker gas.
My crew was there in Afghanistan to keep a gunship airborne to be able to support our troops on the ground.
So during our mission, the timeline that we had originally stepped out the door to support had gradually continued to roll to the right, forcing a later exfil, which put us in the position we were in. We were overhead of FOB providing some armed overwatch for the helicopter assault force that was performing field maintenance because they had taken battle damage en route. We had no intention of coming home until the helicopter assault force was able to perform their field maintenance and return back to base. So at that point, I was really faced with three options. Options 1 and 2 would have required us to go back to base, and we would not have returned to provide any coverage. Option 3, getting a tanker, would enable me to provide additional coverage overhead. So that was the option we wanted to press with.
We were fragged for our normal F-16s out in the combat zone. And from there, things got a little different. When Kingpin called us, they're our controller that controls the airspace. And they said that they had a C-130, an AC-130 that needed fuel, which was uncommon for us. And to see them up at that time of day was also a little different, so we kind of knew that something was going on that was abnormal, that wasn't routine.
The whole crew was relieved to hear that there was one that was available, which at this point was the first time we'd worked with a White World non-soft tanker dedicated asset. At that point, it didn't matter what the tanker background was or where they were coming from. I just knew we needed to get the gas.
Due to the mountainous terrain, we did lose radio communication with Kingpin at the lower altitude. I was a pilot flying, so I was talking to the AC-130 pilot, and we used latitude and longitudes and our own areas where we could link up in rather than a set air refueling track, which is our normal procedure. We had 90 knots of overtake on them, and it just was taking too long, so we decided that to expedite the rejoin, we instructed them to do a left 180-degree turn. We pulled the throttles to idle, speed brakes to try to slow down, dissipate that energy in the turn to get on speed with the same heading and the same altitude. As I saw them disappear under my right side, under the wing to the rear of the aircraft, the boom operator says, "All right, got visual contact," kind of in an impressive tone, and they rolled out perfect distance, and we were able to expedite the rejoin that way.
Kind of a wave of relief did wash over the crew whenever, hey, the tanker appeared right out in front of us. Because at that point, the only thing left to do is go up and get the gas, and that's totally in our hands. I knew we were going to get it done. So they definitely they expedited that, and they really helped us out.
That was like a very rewarding day that day because we were able to do our job, which allowed them to do theirs, and the guys on the ground to do theirs, and so on. And to be that solid link in the chain and do our job well was a very rewarding feeling.
I was thankful that there was an asset available to help us out because the last thing I wanted to do was leave with that assault force on the ground in a vulnerable position. So having that tanker able to provide that support to us in that moment enabled us to do our job and provide that additional comfort, coverage, and support that they needed pretty desperately at that time.
My name is First Lieutenant John Lerda, and I'm a KC-135 pilot.
Will we deliver anywhere and everywhere? To our enemies, we bear the wings of strength. To our friends, the wings of hope. And there are times when our brothers and sisters in arms need life-saving help and in a hurry. So our AE crews are legendary heroes when this happens. So how far will air mobility go to save a life? Reach 797 is going to show us here in a minute. But the wife of the injured soldier said this about Reach 797. They will give anything. They gave their heart and their soul to bring back our wounded brother and bring him back home. So the word is out. What you do inspires hope in the hearts of all Americans. And that hope is going viral. So let's see how you inspired America.
Now to a Fox News exclusive. Last month, over 4 days, 3 military aircraft, 18 medical personnel, 24,000 gallons of fuel, and 26 gallons of blood were spent to save the life of a critically wounded special operations soldier. It started in Afghanistan and stretched across an 8,000-mile non-stop journey home to save this American soldier. Lucas Tomlinson has this incredible story of heroism tonight from the Pentagon.
17 U.S. troops have been killed in combat this year and over 100 wounded. One of them, a special operations soldier, lost his right arm and leg last month after a grenade exploded during close quarters combat. Fox News was given exclusive access to video showing the harrowing effort to save his life. Dozens of troops stood in line outside the Bagram Air Base Hospital to donate blood to their wounded brother. And then the Air Force sprung into action to bring him home. This C-17 flight crew flew from Germany to Afghanistan on short notice and then made the 8,000-mile nonstop journey to Texas.
The crew members that were on board kind of knew what was at stake.
The mission required 2 nighttime mid-air refuelings, one over Europe, the other Maine.
To do it with a aeromedical evacuation patients on board was definitely something that I have never heard of.
We knew like we had to get this done. We could make this almost impossible mission happen.
19 hours later, the C-17 landed in San Antonio to transport the soldier to Brooke Army Medical Center.
We, being the United States military, are going to do everything that we can in our power, and we are going to spare no expense to bring you home.
So Major Kudlat's got it exactly right, and I know he's out there. We know what's at stake. We will do everything we can, and we will spare no expense to get our wounded home to their families. So I want to share one more AE story. Actually, there'll be one more at the end, but I'll share the second one with you. And it's about Reach 445. Reach 445 was there when a sailor was critically wounded outside the wire. You moved heaven and earth to shrink the globe to make sure he had a chance at survival. Let's take a look.
We were there to deliver hope when a family thought they were saying goodbye for the last time. We were expecting to go home. I had called back to see if we can get a different routing because back home there was some weather. You actually need to go to Ramstein and you need to file your own flight plan to get there because we have an aeromedical evacuation that you need to do there.
Simultaneously, we were getting our stuff to the aircraft to care for this patient, and the CCAT team was going to the hospital to package the patient and bring them to the aircraft. This patient's whole family came on to say goodbyes, but it might be the last time that they get to see their son and their brother. There were multiple things going on with this patient. The patient was on a portable dialysis machine. The patient had 7 gunshot wounds to multiple areas of the body, and one wound in particular on the patient's hip was the one that was kind of giving us trouble and was having a bit more bleeding than we were comfortable with. So about 3 hours into the flight, I was speaking with the CCAT doc, Colonel Kogar, and she was telling me that she had some concerns about this wound specifically and how much bleeding was going on. And when we were able to roll the patient, we found a lot more blood. That's when Colonel Kogar said, yeah, we need to turn around. We need to get this patient to a higher level of care because the 4 units of blood that we have with us is not going to be enough.
The loadmasters and crew chief got involved in helping apply pressure and doing whatever the medical team needed them to help with. The aircraft commander turned to me, said, you have the aircraft and the radios, coordinate for the divert while I call back home and figure out where we can take him.
Part of that diversion is to find a hospital that can take care of this patient. We need to have the appropriate level of care for our patient.
Got us turned around, pointed towards Ireland, very non-standard. We landed at Shannon International Airport. They said the fog had rolled in. It was pretty thick. We had to land Cat 2 ILS to minimums.
It's a little bit unnerving when you're in the back with this critical patient and you're trying to stay calm for everyone.
So we got the 2 experienced pilots in the seat. They ended up landing the aircraft, one of which had landed in Cat 2 minimums before.
And I just remember sitting in the back and someone saying, "Where's the runway?"
He picked up the lights right at about minimums, just prior to 100 feet, and we were able to see the runway shortly thereafter, so we continued and landed, rolled out midfield where it was a little clearer.
When the ramp opened in the back of the C-17, there were tons of vehicles with lights. We made sure from my team's aspect that the CCAT team and the patient and the family members were appropriately situated and off to the hospital because that's where they needed to be. And then we just kind of did a little bit of a debrief with the front end and made a game plan for the next day.
The whole crew thought we'll do whatever, we'll wait as long as we need to get him back.
Being the person that is getting our service members back home safely when they need medical care, and also seeing their family and their reaction and the tears, it was definitely motivation to do the best job we can all the time, every day.
Since last ATA, you have relentlessly pursued the mission all around the globe. The numbers are staggering, and the stories overwhelming. The air crews have flown 30,000 missions. Maintenance has generated 70,000 sorties. That's 1 every 3 minutes, every hour of every day. Our aerial ports worldwide have carried 1 million passengers in and out of the fight. And our port dogs, oh, come on. Much better. Our port dogs have loaded 7 million pounds of cargo for our joint force. Our fuels airmen and our boom operators have passed 1 billion pounds of fuel. Billion, B, yes. From dozens of operating locations all around the world, our Mobility Airmen extend the operational reach of our joint and coalition partners, and our special airlift teams have delivered American diplomacy and our leaders all around the world. And our air advisors have strengthened the ties, our mobility ties with our partners and our allies. Together, we've carried the flag on the tail of our aircraft and our shoulders to 175 of 195 countries. What I saw this past year, I'm absolutely convinced there's nothing you can't conquer. What you do is precious to me, precious to your families, and precious to this country. This past year, you've heard me emphasize the future environment will be dynamic and contested. The NDS tells us that every domain we operate in right now is already contested. The days of operating with impunity are pretty much over. So we must be ready to compete at every single level, to project such strength that we deter our enemies. This would take energy, focus, commitment, and perseverance. Today and in the future, we will increasingly rely on space and cyber capabilities to make sure we can do our global mission for the joint force. And as we heard General Wilson talk about and the Undersecretary talk about, these are great strengths, but they're also vulnerabilities. So this is where you come in. You're on the front line. You're doing the mission every single day. You're the expert. You're the tactician. And while you're out there doing your mission, you're going to see the threat first. So it's up to you to help mitigate the threat first. Consider the what-if question. And we got this from General Wilson. What if your orders are spoofed and you end up landing at the wrong base with a critically wounded airman? What if you're a CR team and you're forward, you're near hostile territory, and your comms go out? What if our satellites are jammed? Are you confident in how you're going to navigate? These scenarios are real. They're with us every day. We must be prepared. Simply put, we must compete, deter, and win.
In a complex and ever-changing world, amidst global power competition that challenges American resolve, as adversaries seek to supplant American strength and presence, one thing remains constant: air mobility. Air mobility enables and empowers American might worldwide. When gray tails arrive on a faraway flight line, or fuel up fighters that keep the skies safe, they carry the hope, strength, and resolve of the American people. To those in need, and to those who would seek to test our resolve, every moment of every day, you, Mobility Airmen, are delivering. You deliver defenders of freedom to the battlefield. You deliver the fuel that keeps the world's greatest Air Force flying. You deliver critical care to patients that can't wait a moment longer. And you deliver the effects commanders need to win the fight across the globe, 24/7, 365. You are the best of America. Without you, the mission simply doesn't happen. With you, our fellow airmen, partners, and allies know help is on the way. And our adversaries know they're up against the best. You are America's Mobility Airmen.
You know, there are times you may not realize AMC's role in deterrence, but the fact is you all are front and center in that. Our competition knows this. This is why they're going to try to dodge the pointy end of the spear, and they're going to aim at the shaft. And that was mentioned by the Undersecretary before. The shaft is us, the capabilities that we bring to the fight. So our ability to execute the mission when our information is spoofed, our GPS denied, our communications jammed, our assets targeted, ensures the shaft never breaks. To give you a sense of your role in our nation's deterrence, let's rewind the clock back to February of last year. This year. We're still in this year. In South America, time flies, I'm telling you. This year in South America, the United States came to the assistance of the people of Venezuela, where President Maduro refused to cede power. At first glance, it just appeared to be another humanitarian mission of hope. But in reality, the U.S. needed to send a strategic message. And that message was, we will stand against foreign actors furthering their interest and oppressing the people. So we created information effects to compete, and we used AMC's tools to do it. So you were there, not only to deliver that hope to the people of Venezuela, but to demonstrate American resolve to a watching world.
We demonstrated resolve, we demonstrated solidarity with the government of Colombia, and we demonstrated capability. And that's what the U.S. Air Force and Air Mobility Command are known for.
The week before the operation, we had the president on national television telling the world that the U.S. was going to support the people in Venezuela.
We will stand with the Venezuelan people every single day until they are finally freed from this horrible and brutal oppression.
So we were there to deliver America's strategic message when tensions were at its highest. We're also there to stand with the people of Venezuela and show strength against the misuse of power.
In this particular situation, this was a high visibility mission. There was a lot of tension that was going on in that area of the world. Inside Venezuela, Mr. Guaido, who was recognized by some as the president of Venezuela, was challenging Mr. Maduro, who still felt that he was in charge, and there were violent clashes.
So the mission was a high stake because it was a humanitarian mission, and when you think humanitarian, most of the time you think you go into a safer place. But in this case, we're on a humanitarian mission, but also there was a high threat from Venezuela.
And so Southcom has the lead since it was their AOR and planning on how we were going to try to get food down into the region. Colombia was a permissible environment, so that was the next best option. There's a couple different locations that we thought we could possibly use.
There was a considerable amount of refugees moving out of Venezuela into Colombia. There was historical, long-standing tensions between Colombia and Venezuela. So the combination of all those factors, combined with the need for U.S. Air Force and Air Mobility Command crews to bring in humanitarian assistance relief to the airfield there in the eastern side of Colombia near Venezuela, amounted to a pretty significant situation.
This was an information campaign, a strategic message campaign that we were just used as a support mechanism to enable that that capability. It was the message that the president announced that we were going to support the folks in Venezuela and that we had the capability to actually get that down there rapidly in a short period of time and provide that aid. That became a no-fail mission.
Air Mobility, we're proud of the fact that we're mission hackers. And that's exactly what those crews did that day, is they dug in, hacked the mission, did what was necessary to get the job done, made our country proud, made our command proud. So, well done.
You know, our nation has many different arrows in its quiver of defense. By recent example, and those of the past, you bring this value to the fight every single day. Consider with me the ways Air Mobility Command has been there at crucial times in our history. The vital role of airborne paratroopers in Operation Overlord, when Lieutenant Winters and Easy Company were inserted behind enemy lines through dense AAA by the brave airmen of the C-47s. And we cannot forget the storied fame of Berlin Airlift. The monumental feat that preserved the city, thwarted communism, and preserved an entire culture. And our very own Gail Halvorsen, is Gail here? Where is he? Awesome, our own Mobility Airman, Gail Halvorsen. Whose personal strategy and benevolence endured a continent. Thank you, sir. You're amazing. How about the story of the 1st Marine Division, trapped in the Chosin Reservoir by 120,000 Chinese soldiers, facing annihilation, because the only way out was a bridge, and the bridge was no longer there. So the Mobility Airmen of the 314th Troop Carrier Group flew 8 C-119 boxcars to airdrop a bridge. The Marines used those bridge sections to escape, to live and fight another day. Remember the dense jungles of Vietnam? And the innovative Mobility Airmen who used C-23s to airdrop flares under a parachute? The illumination from the flares lighted up 9 interdiction efforts along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And don't overlook the strategic advantage of rapid mobilization on display during Desert Storm. Air Mobility Airmen make that happen. Finally, consider our operations in Afghanistan, a landlocked nation not accessible to U.S. by the ground. You created that air bridge. You made that operation happen, delivering troops, supplies, equipment, fuels, fighters, and everything in between to give the sucker punch back to the Taliban. As you consider these highlights, think about those airmen who have gone before us. Men and women of great character and great courage. When they fell, they got back up. When they saw someone fall, they picked them up. Commitment got them started when others just stood around. And commitment kept them going when others flat out gave up. They cared. They cared even about the little things, because little things are just as important as big things. So let me tell you a quick story. You guys know I'm a storyteller, so I'm going to tell you a story about the little things. So this story happens in India, and you all that know me, you know the chief talked about it the other day, you got to know people, and I think the people that know me know where my heart is, and it's with the poorest of the poor, doing very little things, which make such a big deal. So this story is about my brother and I going to Calcutta, India, serving in the different houses that Mother Teresa started around India. Daya Dan, House of the Severely Handicapped Children. Prem Dan was a nursing home. Chishu Bhavan was a orphanage for 400 children. And Kalagat. Kalagat's a house of the destitute and dying. So my brother and I show up there to serve. We go to Kalagat and go there to make a difference, right? And we serve all day long. And while we were there, we learned of a doctor who had gone there before us. And this doctor was a well-known renowned internist here in the United States, and he had gone to Kalagat. He met Mother Teresa, he knew Mother Teresa, and he had gone to make a difference. He says, I'm going to Kalagat and I'm going to save people's lives. Mother Teresa would pick the folks off the street who were just dying in the street. People would walk around them, walk over them, and she would bring them to Kalagat, and the sisters would take care of them, clean them up, feed them, and be with them till they died. So the doctor tells his story of going there. And he shows up in the lobby. Sister Priscilla meets him in the lobby, and she says, Doctor, I'm so glad you're here. I've got so much work for you to do today. And he says, I'm excited too. He's got his stethoscope around his neck. He's a proud doctor, and he's like, I'm ready to go to work. So they make their way to the women's section of Kalagat. It's divided into men and women's section. So they they're walking through the women's section, and it's tiers. You've got the main floor, and then about a foot up there's a tier, and then about another 6 inches is another tier. And on these tiers are cots, about 3-inch cots, and on those cots are what is best described as skeletons with skin on them. People who are in their last days. People who just need a good meal and a lot of love. So he's walking through there, and he's going, I can help all these people. He's thinking all the things that he can do to just make a difference in that room. Sister just keeps walking. They get to the men's section, same thing. Distant looks, just dire circumstances in that room. And Sister just keeps walking. And he made a comment, Sister, I think we can, I can help people here. She goes, nope, we got to keep going. They end up in the kitchen. They're standing there in the kitchen. And in the kitchen, they're making big vats of rice, rice and chicken. They're cooking lunch. They're preparing lunch. And he's standing in the kitchen not understanding this, and he sees the back door, and he goes, oh, we must be going out the back door. There must be the most sick out in the back. They must be out there. Well, they proceed out the back door. They get there, and all there is out there is a pile of trash about this high, about 8 feet around. There's 2 buckets, there's a shovel. There's no one else out there. There's no one that needs his help. There's just this pile. Sister goes, Doctor, I need you to move this pile down to the end of the street. The dump's on the right. You can't miss it. And she turns around and walks back in the building. And he says, as she was walking back in, he's about ready to say something to her, and he goes, I think I just need to do this. So he's cussing, he's cursing, takes his stethoscope up, shoves it in his pocket, and begins to work on the pile. 6 hours later, he's done. He knows, it's in July in Calcutta, by the way. He knows for sure that, or the only thing he knows for sure, is that he smells as bad as that pile that he just moved down the end of the street. He's got his head hung low. He walks through the kitchen, not really understanding what has just happened this entire day. He's flown all the way halfway around the world to make a difference, and all he did was move a pile. Anybody can move a pile. So as he walked through the kitchen, they were making dinner. He'd been out there so long. They were making dinner. He walks back through the men's section, looking around going, I could make such a difference. I could have made such a difference. Same thing, through the women's section. Gets to the front lobby. He's standing there, he's looking down at his shoes going, man, this is not how I thought this day was going to turn out. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. And he's wondering if he's going to come back tomorrow. As he looks up, waiting for Sister Priscilla, he sees this sign on the wall. It's about this big, handwritten, black marker, signed Mother Teresa. We are not expected to do great things. Only small things with great love. And he looks down at his shoes and he goes, I get it. I get it. It's not how many degrees I have. It's not what I thought I was going to give. It's the availability to be there to give whatever you're asked. Whatever the need is, no matter how small. no matter how small. So he's standing there beginning to have a different feel about how this day went. Sister Priscilla comes out and goes, "Doctor, thank you, thank you, thank you. There was a small group of volunteers who were supposed to come here and move that pile. And if you hadn't moved that pile, we could not have taken care of the residents that we needed to today. So thank you for that." So she says, "I forgot to ask you, how was your day?" He says, "Perfect." And she says, "You coming back tomorrow?" He said, "Absolutely." Right? That's what you do. You do the big things. But we also do the small things. We do the things that are needed. We see a need, we fill it. We see an airman down, we pick them up. That's what we do. That's what you do. That's what I've watched you do. That's what I know that's in your heart. That's what we do. So one more AE story I told you. That doctor I'm telling you about, you moved him. He was an Army reservist, downrange, got injured, and you actually flew him back to the States. Small world. Small world. Chief, why don't you come join me here for a second? Best partner in the world. So each day we all put on the uniform. We stand shoulder to shoulder with those who have gone before us. Our duty? To push a pallet, to push up the throttles, to turn a wrench, to turn that engine, to extend the boom, to command a mission, to start an IV, to save a hero's life. That's our duty. You are a part of our formation every single day. We're an echelon. We stand ready to fulfill our sacred oath and our absolute way of life. Together we wear the cloth of this nation and stand for a purpose oh so much bigger than ourselves. We believe in and know the power of serving others and of bearing the weight of human need, no matter the cost. As airmen, we succeed. As airmen, we invest our skills, our talents, and our lives in this country and in each other. As airmen, we lead from the front. We kneel by those in need. We share in the work of our teammates, we respect their lives, and we honor their contributions. As airmen, we are never alone. We're America's airmen. God bless you. God bless what you do, and God bless your families. Thank you.